welcome into the PHNX Cardinals post-game show brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcasts. Johnny Venerable, Bo Brock, Damien Anderson, Frank Sanders. Hot damn. The Arizona Cardinals will pick third in the 2023 NFL Draft. Not seventh, not sixth, not fourth. They get pick number 3, baby. They took the L today against San Francisco. We're going to talk about that. Russell Wilson and company get it done at home against those fraudulent LA Chargers. And now Bo Brock, the Arizona Cardinals, 2 birds in one hand. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, whomever they want at pick 3, they will be available.
Yeah, it's a nice consolation prize for a 4-13 season, right? I mean, we just saw the final whistle blow on that season. We saw J.J. Watt ride out into the sunset, not as a winner. Well, he's a winner, but also finishing his career strong as we expected. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and then we witnessed the final game of Kliff Kingsbury. I think what Arizona Cardinals fans are excited about is hope, right? They're hopeful with a 3rd pick, with changes potentially probably coming at the head coaching position and in the front office. That's what they're hopeful for, because it's not just it's a bit of a blank canvas. You've got some pieces you're excited about, including that 3rd overall pick, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, going into what they call it, Black Monday, Johnny.
Yes, tomorrow.
It's a bit of a cliffhanger. You guys like that?
Love it.
No, but I mean,
That's the kind of energy we're feeling, baby.
Let's go.
but no, guys. I think it's equitable, right? Like, I mean, you take an L on the season, you go in 4-13, and then you get a position to get a top draft pick.
Yeah.
And everyone could see Johnny's energy on what a Carter or what a Will Anderson, loved the surname, what that name would mean for the Arizona Cardinals, because we could see the difference that can make to a ball club.
Yep.
Johnny, the only thing that I'm concerned about is the complete overhaul and that time that will take for the Arizona Cardinals to be relevant again.
Well, here's the thing. You got to put everything else aside, the GM, the head coaching search, because that's all going to be settled and done by April's draft, and we will cover it extensively. We will have a draft showcase. Be sure to join us then. We're going to be at the Combine, but it feels like now in a quarterback-rich draft, Frank Sanders, when you've got Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud making a move now, Chicago Bears, we talked about it on our halftime show, having the 1st overall pick, maybe they're more likely to trade out. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Cardinals pick 3rd now, and both players are available. It's a beautiful thing for a team outside of J.J. Watt that I think is due for an impact blue chip player in the front 7.
Look, I agree with you 100% where the Cardinals are. We've gone through this full season. I think the best thing we can do right now is where we stand at, where we placed ourselves at the end of the season. We deserve something special.
That's right.
Yeah. Bo said it several times. You guys deserve good news. You deserve something good to happen to you. It's been a long season and a half, actually, considering how it was last year, midway through the season. And I'm telling you what, guys, it's a tough loss, tough season. But to know that we can potentially go out and get some guys that can really come in here and make an impact, that's definitely going to be a desired taste for us all.
It's an asset, right? It's an asset that's going to make this coaching position potentially look attractive.
That's right.
It's when you see it and you have the ability with a 3rd overall pick, whether you stick and pick, which would be a good situation with the prospects we just outlined, whether it's Carter or whether it's an Anderson or somebody that emerges between now and then. Senior Bowl, which I'll be at. We're going to have the PHNX crew there, and we'll have people at the Combine as well. We're going to have this thing thoroughly looked over, and you hope the Cardinals do their due diligence with this asset, that you're going to have the 3rd overall pick to either stick and pick with or create more assets, right? You can get more draft capital because, with the reports that Steve Keim is not returning and the ability, the hope, the grass is already is greener on the other side with a new GM, if it's the co-GM tandem or somebody else making the selection, that, okay, hey, we can get excited about draft season again. And, you could expedite potentially a rebuild.
Yeah.
That's why the NFL is so popular, is because it's realistic each and every season for teams to go the previous year from worst to first or worse back in the playoff contention.
Let me add this real quick. What I do know about having the 3rd overall pick in the draft is you can't F this up.
No.
Like, you shouldn't have the power and ability to look at the board and be
Cardinals
like,
this.
oh, let me think. I'm just going to take the best player, and he's a kicker. Come on, or a quarterback, and you don't need a quarterback on your team.
Inside linebacker.
The 3rd overall pick, you should not be able to mess this up.
This is plug and play, baby. And again, we want to emphasize, even if the Cardinals had picked 4th, we would have liked their prospects. But third now, you jump Seattle. And speaking of Seattle, here is how this all came to be heading into today, this Sunday slate of games, because it wasn't a gimme. The Cardinals started fourth. They would have needed a couple things to happen, and by golly, did they ever. So the Ravens lost to the Bengals, which in de facto should have meant that the Chargers not only locked up the 5th seed, which they did, they go to Jacksonville now, but Brandon Staley's dumbass should have sat everybody because this game meant nothing. But what did he do? He played Justin Herbert, Mike Williams and company. Mike Williams got carted off in this game with a back injury. So I'm thinking to myself, fire this clown, Brandon Staley. He's playing these guys. They were beating really the holy hell out of the Broncos in the first quarter. But give the Broncos and their coaching staff credit. They had nothing to play for. They wanted to leave a good tape, a good resume for whomever takes over this team. Like, we didn't quit. And by golly, they did not quit as the Broncos beat the Chargers. And of course, we saw it. The Cardinals embarrassed in Santa Clara, 4 turnovers. They lose to the 49ers. But again, grand scheme of things, we'll debate how many Cardinals are going to be on this team that were on this roster today. I would venture not very many. But you look at that 3rd overall pick now, very poetic, Bo Brock. J.J. Watt goes off into the sunset, right? He gets to, have a tremendous final game, 2 sacks. Bringing in somebody like, I don't know, Jalen Carter to replace him. SEC standout, defensive tackle, borderline defensive player of the year last year, or a Will Anderson, who's about as can't miss as they come. I just feel like today it was very poetic. You say goodbye to JJ and you say hello to a blue chip defensive lineman prospect.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it almost foolproof, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of narrow down and not completely whiff on your draft pick. And also it makes tomorrow's game between Georgia and TCU interesting, a must-watch almost for any Arizona Cardinals fan, because you want to see, hey, what's Jalen Carter going to bring to the table? If you watched him against TCU, if you watch him against Ohio State, you probably are a little concerned, right? You want to see him bounce back and see what this kid is truly made of, DA. I think, this is truly something that should get the fan base excited after having to eat kind of a shit sandwich all season long.
I mean, 4-13 will do that to you. And I mean, anytime that you have that inconsistency offensively, defensively, you need some help. And we talked about this at the onset of the season. Losing guys like Chandler Jones, was J.J. Watt going to be enough? And although that he was a stalwart on this defensive front, they missed a lot of areas, being struggling, being 13th against run defense, and upper latter third in the NFL and all the other statistical categories. And we didn't see that constant pressure. To have a guy like Will Anderson or Carter available, I think it could tremendously help this defense. But looking at the chat and seeing everybody talk, guys, will it matter if Vance is a defensive coordinator?
Great question. We got a report to pivot off of that, Damien, yesterday from Albert Breer and company stating the following, and we put this out on Twitter. Felt like we almost could have done a show yesterday, this morning, based on the amount of news that had come out about this team even before kickoff today. But it said something to the effect of, the Arizona Cardinals, Michael Bidwill, have been gathering information on candidates, how he would run the process if he makes the change, just 1 year after Arizona made the playoffs with Kingsbury in his 3rd season. But in the Albert Breer article specifically, it stated, guys, I'm sure you guys saw this on Twitter, that Vance Joseph could be the lead candidate. This is also from that clip. We can go ahead and bring that back up, Jacob. This is from Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissaro, Bo, making plans in the case is not a rarity, but the Cardinals situation is complicated. Longtime GM Steve Keim not expected to return. Unlikely, according to the article. Keim's absence left Bidwill without a sounding board and someone he's relied on for years. So if Bidwill is going to do a search, he'll need help.
Yeah, I mean, the areas of frustration for Cardinals fans, it seems like they're working themselves away from the organization. And it seems like that's what happened with Steve Keim weeks ago. Of course, we talk about it with it as a health-related situation. We continue to say, look, you hope that he gets right. But as far as, do you want to see him return to the GM position? No, I don't think anybody wants to see that. Could he return in another capacity? Fine. But as long as you're not touching the day-to-day operations as far as building this roster, that's what Cardinals fans want to hear. They want to see some fresh eyes on this thing, because, outside of the playoff appearance, 3 of the last 5 seasons, you've had double-digit losses. It's been too many losses. You have 1 home win under the current regime in the last calendar year. That's not getting it done.
Lost 7 straight.
You lost 7 straight. I mean, you are what your record says, and their record, despite all the injuries, was not good enough. It's not good enough for people to spend their hard-earned money on this team in any capacity, whether that's tickets to the game, season tickets, jerseys, outdated jerseys. Hint, hint. Maybe with all these changes potentially coming, you finally update your duds. You maybe get some new threads as far as the uniforms go.
That's right.
So I think with this, after kind of putting the dirt on this 2022-2023 season, finally burying it, you can kind of look forward to a new age of Cardinals football, and hopefully with the right approach to it, right? As far as doing things right, building the team through the draft and putting players around Kyler Murray, because you are locked in with Kyler Murray and you should be excited about what he brings to the table, but you should be hopeful with what is potentially there and what with fresh eyes where they could go from here.
The only thing I would say is the only thing I do not want to see happen is what we saw happen last year. Like in our offseason, it was absolutely abysmal.
Chaos.
Everything that happened in the offseason of not signing players, not going into free agency and bringing guys in to beef up this defensive line or our secondary, not doing much in the draft, but getting some young guys you can bring in.
Yep.
Late signings of your top player in Kyler Murray. Guys not being healthy for mini camp, training camp, or coming into the regular season. How guys are not healthy at all. And we was missing our top draft pick and players to play. I'm just hoping we don't have that same drama that we had last year in the offseason.
Frank, I mean, you bring up some great points, and everything that you're talking about is the culture. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm concerned about if you recycle and bring a guy like Vance Joseph in, are you doing the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You need a guy that has credibility, and not that Vance doesn't. I think that everyone watches Hard Knocks and likes him, likes the person that he is, likes the energy that he brings, and, thinks he's a character guy. But I think that you need a complete 180 overhaul of this organization in terms of the coaching aspect. Who's going to lead?
Yep.
Someone that they could count on, look at, hold the players accountable, because we kind of saw that. I mean, it could go both sides, right, with the Titans, I think, being at number 1 and Arizona Cardinals being at number 2 in terms of, the turnover on the roster, per year, in terms of methodology and how they go about practice. Titans hardcore, bang every day. Arizona more laissez-faire, we're chill. I know the guys are ready. They're going to get out there and play. But they need a guy who's going to be credible, who's going to be disciplined and hold players accountable. And I think that's going to turn the Arizona Cardinals around, because we saw it similarly happen with the Rams when they were good. I mean, they were aggressive in the offseason, getting, a guy like, Von Miller, and they had that elder, guys within their ball club like Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford at key positions, Bo and Johnny, where they didn't have to coach them. You know what I mean? They could just let them play and, hey, this is our program and this is what we're going to do. And I think if the Cardinals can search and find a guy like that, that will lead them in the right place.
I just want to say one thing. The Arizona Cardinals are 3rd in points allowed this year. They just gave up 38 points today. That number is going to go down. They're going to leapfrog, you would assume, the Detroit Lions, who are giving up also 25.7 points per game. So them and Chicago are the 2 worst defenses in giving up points. You cannot sit in your fan base, and I love Vance Joseph. I think he's a good man. He's a good coach. The Cardinals are lucky to have him for the time that they did with Kliff Kingsbury. And hell, if they had, if they got Sean Payton and Sean's like, I'll keep Vance as my DC, I wouldn't have a problem with that. However, you cannot look at your fan base if a lot of people have speculated like Vance is a 1-year stopgap. I don't care. You can't look at your fan base and say, we are promoting Vance Joseph to head coach. We're firing Kliff Kingsbury when your defense has been this bad. And he has done a disservice to young players. I get it. Myjai Sanders, Cameron Thomas, they probably shouldn't have been playing all season, but they should have been playing sooner. You saw them today, Bo. Each get a sack. They were more productive than Marcus Golden and Dennis Gardeck. It took them too damn long to play.
But you're talking about week 17, though, Jay.
Yeah, but I get that.
Week 17, after a couple of weeks of watching it, figuring it out.
But they had no pass rush early in the season without them playing. So at what point you just needed to thrust them in the lineup? And I appreciate Sean Marks, our guy in the super chat, $1.99. Here's to upping the dad jokes game. We're gonna have plenty of dad jokes. We got 4 dads here, but we got 3rd overall pick. So we got the dad jokes coming your way. But Bo, on my Vance Joseph rant here, I think it's frustrating because it's going to come off like we're anti-Vance Joseph. We're not.
No, we're not.
But no other franchise would consider Vance Joseph for their head job.
Right.
I'm sorry. We laughed last year when Miami interviewed him, and most people rooted for him to go there so the Cardinals could get a comp pick, and the Dolphins didn't hire him. He's been worse this year. You can't hire Vance Joseph.
Guys, I will say, because I do feel, Johnny, don't get me wrong, you bring up some valid, points. But we talk about complementary football. We haven't seen that offensively to help that defense.
That's true.
And they've been on, I guarantee you, if you look at the data and look how long they've been on the football field versus the offense and those 3 and outs. I mean, when was the last time we've seen an extended drive or,
today, that was the first one in a long time.
There you go. They're the first one in a long time. So, Johnny, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Agreed. He was not set up for success with Kliff Kingsbury, and that's another bullet why Kliff should be let go tonight or tomorrow. But the answer should not be let's pivot hard to Vance's. All right. There are options out there, Michael, proven options, ascending options. D'Amico Ryans beat the shit out of your team twice this year. Go interview him.
Did what?
He beat the shit out of the Cardinals twice this year in Mexico City with Colt McCoy, and today 4 turnovers. That game wasn't competitive, especially in the second half. Go and interview with Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh. You can do all those things starting next week. If you want to interview Vance, that's fine. And if he blows you away and everybody else says no, then you have no choice, Bo. But to come out and say and leak it to Albert Breer that he's the leader in the clubhouse, think of your fan base. Think of what they've been through.
That's everything, though. Like, not just fans. That's, you're talking about bringing Keim back somewhere into the organization. He's still going to have his conversation as an attaché to Michael to be able to speak and say certain things that will, in regards to the draft. That's what he does.
Yeah.
And so when you talk, everything you're saying, you got to clean house for the fan base. You got to clean house for the new taste. You got to clean house from a national perspective.
Can't be any holdovers.
You really have to do. You have to. And guess what? I think if you watch this team, and if you're a coach and you've watched how they've been playing with the money and watching how things have been, once you really realize who's making the calls behind the scenes, now that Keim is not there, you probably have to make your own decisions as a coach if you still want to be here at all. We don't even know the full conversation about the Kugler situation.
Right.
And if that really comes out that was tampered with and Kugler, he got fined and it was really Keim,
that'll be a problem.
That's going to be a major problem across the board. That haven't even been touched out yet. They can probably wait to drop that after the draft on what happened.
Well, you hope that you can get a new head man as far as your head coach goes before that comes out, because that's going to be a bad look regardless of what the facts are in that story. It's just ugly for all parties involved. But as far as the last, almost 50 days for this organization, and Michael Bidwill hasn't seen a win for this team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, November 13th, I think, was the last time that they won a football game. 7 straight in a row. That he's going to ask himself, what's it truly going to take to be a winner? He says all the time that he wants to be the owner of a winning franchise, but it's going to take more than, hey, I've got a bunch of good men behind the scene, or guys good men calling the shots, because that's what Kliff and Vance,
they're good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, despite what the results are.
It's a results-driven league.
Exactly. And Vance is the first guy to say that. He said that this week during his press conference. His transparency was unbelievable. I loved it. And I'm sure the fan base appreciates it with the caveat, like, okay, as long as he's not the guy. Like, I can appreciate that as long as he's not the guy, because you need some outside, fresh perspective on how to do this thing, because the people that have been inside that building, from the front office to the coaching staff, it's not getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it's got to be about winning games.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
That's what
it's
all
about.
That's what it's all about.
We've been talking about moral victories for a month and a half.
But guys,
now.
if it was about winning games, we would have seen them be aggressive in the offseason, in free agency.
No doubt about it.
When we identified all those areas of concern, offensive line, defensive line, where's this help going to come from?
Guys would have been fired already. Transitions would have been already been made already.
In a year that you thought you were going to the playoffs. DraftKings, we love DraftKings, had you guys as a playoff favorite. And speaking of DraftKings, and I want to get into the A-Dub Quentin Harris thing in a second, because the co-GM thing deserves its own segment, and I think that with each passing hour, that is more likely to happen. But I want to tell you about DraftKings. So, DraftKings today, right now, the NBA Boost is still ongoing. Today is the last day. All you got to do, you got to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You got to use the promo code PHNX. All you got to do is put a 5 spot on any NBA team to win their game. Listen, the Suns aren't very good right now. They're playing the Cavs, right? And if you think the Cavs are going to hand the Suns yet another loss, Suns haven't won a game this year. In the new year, put 5 spot, $150 in free bets. I'm just saying, I'm trying to help the people win some money on DraftKings. Spread, no thanks. It's a money line bet. If you like another team in the NBA, put a 5 spot, help them get that dub, and you'll get $150 in free bets. That's promo code PHNX, only at DraftKings. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Our DraftKings king of the game, Bo Brock, can you take a guess who it is?
Was his name Justin James Watt?
It's sure as hell not Trace McSorley. J.J. Watt, ass kicker extraordinaire. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a pass defended. Saved his best for last, potentially. Wants to go out on top. Cardinals may not be a winner, but Watt is. And he has been the best player on this Cardinals defense for the majority of the season. He held up his end of the bargain. I'm sure Michael Bidwill would have loved to welcome him back next year. Looks like he's riding off into the sunset, Frank, as somebody that can put his head up high. He was playing his best football when he retired.
JJ gave Myjai Sanders and anybody in that defensive locker room 4 years of experience, and it elevated them tremendously just with the knowledge that he passed on to them. To watch work ethic, to watch what it takes to be a pro, to understand how to manage the week, how to come in, get your body right, and then show up for game day. That's what a pro does. That's what a pro does. And I think JJ gave us that. The fan base stayed engaged because of him. A lot of the things with the coaching staff, I think the guys played hard for him as the season came down to an end. And all you can do is want the best for a guy that has come to the franchise. Finally got a full season, man, where he can actually walk away from the game, not having to go through rehab, not having to have surgery on any part of his body that we know of. And I'm proud of him, man. I'm proud that I wish I'd have played with a JJ Watt. I think I played with several guys in the Seth Joyner or Aeneas Williams, guys that came to work, Larry Centers that came to work. Damien Anderson, guys that, just like DA, man, would just show up to work every day. Like that's, but I mean, like, but just on another, on the levels that guys get opportunities, JJ maximizes opportunity. JJ wanted everybody around him to be better. JJ's a teammate. JJ's a friend. JJ's one of the guys in the locker room you can look forward to, teaching the rookies how to be rookies, but also making the locker room better. And I think he did a great job of that this year, man. Absolutely proud of him. And happy for his success today. Plus, he made a lot of money too, though. Like,
he did.
I mean, he camped up the last 3-4 games about $2 million and just putting the quarterbacks on their butt. I ain't mad at him for that.
12.5 sacks, and till the very end, he did that. I saw Cameron Thomas coming in the locker room on the day of JJ's last practice. He looked like a kid coming home with a A+ book report to his parents, saying that JJ gave him an arm workout. And he's sitting there, he's looking swole and stuff, and he's saying, "Hey JJ, thanks for this arm workout that he gave him, and I'm gonna apply it for the rest of my life, pretty much, And that's the kind of things." And JJ even said during his final press conference with the Cardinals, at least leading up to the game, saying he really enjoyed being that mentor. He really enjoyed kind of being a guy that they could lean on and ask questions, and liked it when they would soak it up and seek it out. That's a quote from JJ about guys like Myjai, guys like Cameron, guys like Zach Allen, continued to kind of use him as somebody to kind of improve their game on a daily basis. So, JJ Watt, it was an absolute honor to be able to watch him play for, 1.5 seasons for the most part with the Arizona Cardinals. What he does transcends the playing field. Let's talk about more good stuff. Let's talk about our PHNX Tee Party going on less than a week from today. We're going to tee it up at Dobson Ranch Golf Course out there in Mesa. We're going to have a blast. We're going to have not only the PHNX Tee Party, where it's now at a nicer rate, $36 per person. Kids 10 and under can come playing free, and you can come out and hang out with us. We're renting out the entire driving range. We're going to be playing with the PHNX crew, the diehards out there. We're going to have great food. We're going to have drinks, contests, prizes, and more. It's going to be presented by our friends over at Four Peaks. So when I talk about beer, that's the beer we're going to have. So it's not like we're going to be throwing a couple, Bud Lights or Coors Lights at you. We're going to be giving you some good beer, like the Pumpkin Porter, like the Kilt Lifter. How about the Wow Wheat? You can't go wrong with Four Peaks. So you can't go wrong with the PHNX Tee Party. I'm going to be putting on a clinic as far as the long drive goes. Join us Friday, January 13th, 5:30. There's nothing spooky about this Friday the 13th. Join us for the PHNX Tee Party. Sign up today.
There's nothing spooky about that, but this might scare you a little bit. So Michael Bidwill, it was reported yesterday and today, is considering not one, but 2 replacements for Steve Keim. Internal hire. Stop me if you've heard this before. Elevating both Quentin Harris and Adrian Wilson as a co-GM faction of sorts. And while we both like Q Harris and A-Dub, to get interviews, to go through the rigors of the process, if they come out on the back end, Frank, Damien, Bo, so be it. But sitting at that press conference, to borrow Bo, and elevating both men and keeping it in-house for a team that just lost 13 games, for a team that hasn't won a division title since 2015, for a team that just had the most embarrassing season on and off the field since they moved to Arizona in the late 80s, I do not think that's a win for the Cardinals. I think that's a quick hit, comfort level. It's like it's the holiday season. It's comfort food, but the holidays are over. New Year's resolution, hey, Cardinals, new year, new you, don't do that. And that's a little bit concerning right now because I feel like it's on the horizon, DA.
Guys, Frank and I know both Q and Adrian, personally, right? And I think that they're both quality candidates. But I think that just like some top shows out there like Yellowstone or BMF, right? Those people's in those leadership positions got a lot of ego.
That's right.
And I wouldn't say it's necessarily Keim, Quentin, or Adrian. It's Michael dictates a lot that's going on.
That's
and
right.
I think whether it's going to be, if we see that transition to a dual, GM, Johnny, and I agree. I don't necessarily believe that it's the best situation for the Arizona Cardinals because I think it is a culture thing, but I think it's Michael relinquishing those duties and getting a guy like Sean Payton. I don't know if that's going to happen because I know that we've talked about that extensively on, asking for permission and if that will happen, but you need a guy like that. I think you really need a football mind that could come in, call the play, get the groceries and cook the food. And it's not to discredit Q or Adrian. They're both greats of the game. Quentin's been in the front office for some time, a little bit longer than Adrian, and he's very analytical, comes well prepared. He's a Syracuse grad. I'm an advocate for him. I think that he should get that position. And I'm not saying it over Adrian, but if they had to pick one, it would be Quentin Harris because I think that he's well qualified. But at the same time, it's also, Johnny, Bo, Frank, I'm going to throw this back to you guys. It's Michael's power and control over the decisions that are made within this organization.
The 49ers changed general managers and they got Lynch.
Yep.
Not one day in the history of his lifetime has he ever been a general manager at all. Never sat in office at all.
No.
So you got no question marks about him. I got no question marks about A-Dub who sat in the office. I got no question marks on Q. The idea is you have to allow the management and the general manager has to have a game plan. We will be aggressive or we'll be passive aggressive. And this year we saw the Cardinals be very passive aggressive in going out into the market.
Yeah.
How many times we've seen them do that? And I think no matter what transpired, you still got to go out and have the mentality that I will get players that will come to play at all costs. You think the San Francisco 49ers gave a shit about going to get Christian McCaffrey? I'll wait. Now look at him. And we told him he broke down, his hamstrings are terrible. He won't be nothing. I'll wait.
Look fresh out there.
Right. Look very, 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 very fresh. So that has nothing to do with that. The mentality is what you bring to the table. You create the atmosphere that says, I will do what it takes to win. I will go get players. I will go get the best of whatever we need to have. That happens. And you have to let that happen. And if it works that way, Jay, if it works that way, great. But in the mentality of it is that's what it requires. The shenanigans of this offseason drug into the season.
They did.
And that's exactly what happened this year.
It was too much to overcome, and it bled into the dysfunction, and it showed how just dysfunctional the Cardinals were, Bo. But here's what I want to say. I'm not going to bitch and moan for 6 months if they do the co-GM thing, and I'm just going to say same old Cardinals. Because the number one factor, because the number one factor, I'm going to be disappointed with it initially because I think it shows lack of growth from Michael Bidwill and lack of self-awareness. Like your team is a disaster. Like who are you to promote from within? Here's what I will say: Adrian Wilson got GM interviews. I think Quentin Harris has been candidate for a GM. Bears, right? They've gotten interviews, so that's probably what Michael is thinking. Anything is better right now than Steve Keim having this third overall pick, and that is a win in and of itself. That is a reason to celebrate. We've gotten basically confirmation that Keim will be gone, and he is not going to have this draft, this pinnacle draft that could set the Cardinals on the course for the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm going to be excited about that, and I will give A-Dub and Q the benefit of the doubt if that's what they do. However, I feel like it is so redundant for the Cardinals to do the same thing year after year, promote from within, and they're a losing ball club.
Right.
Like at some point, go get good people. Not that A-Dub and Quentin, go get qualified people from other organizations to show you how to be a winner, Bo.
But it wouldn't change, though, Bo, if the guy that's calling the shots still has his hand.
Michael Bidwill
but guys,
still meddling.
Q was here during Wisenhunt. Q was here during
BA.
During BA. Like, so he witnessed what it takes and what pieces you need. And I'm not, just trying to be devil's advocate. I just want our fans to have that information because I see them in the chats, like anything from within we're not really rocking with. And I get that because you want a complete overhaul. You want somebody new. I see a lot of there's hope.
How many
with
times
the number
do you
3
disagree
pick.
with your manager, your CEO,
Right on.
whatever profession you might be? Hey, put me in that position, and I'm doing it
I'll
differently.
kill it.
I
I'll kill it.
guarantee
I'm gonna
you.
kill it.
I guarantee you,
Yeah.
these two gentlemen had those thoughts, especially during this past offseason. We're like, what, it's gotta. I'm sure everybody in that building who wasn't Steve Keim and Michael Bidwill felt like, hey, there's a good chance that this is going to go south because we didn't do jack shit as far as this offseason goes. I mean, when you think about, you keep saying, Harris's Q is a guy that's more analytical, and the analytics would back up that the status quo wasn't going to get it done. It's sure as shit not going to get it done coming off 4-13. There's nothing analytically that's going to make that case. And Adrian Wilson, he's just an ass kicker. He's a guy that's not going to accept anything that's not competitive and going to compete. So. Those are good options, but I still think that you're doing yourself wrong as an organization that continues to tell the fan base, we want to do everything that can win. You got to do your due diligence. You got to go out there and interview everybody. You got to open things up. You can't just say, hey, we're gonna promote from within because we believe in our guys.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost that ability to do that. Nobody's going to trust that. So go out there, at least have some interviews, talk to some different people, get some fresh ideas, because right now it ain't working.
I want to get to some super chats here. Thank you so much, Joel. $1.99. Possible that VJ leaked it for some sort of leverage. I think
that's a good point.
Yeah, and I also think it's the Cardinals maybe leaking it just to show that they're going to abide by maybe the Rooney Rule, and hopefully that they do.
It's got to be external.
Does it have to be external?
You have to talk to at least one external candidate as far as to abide by the Rooney.
Male or female?
Male or female?
Male or female?
Male or female. Well, I do think that Vance is going to be highly considered, and I think you're naive to think otherwise. But thank you for that. Aaron, super chat, $2. Fire Keim and Kliff, and Hollywood was useless. Hollywood will have plenty of time. Hollywood's going to be on the team next year. Hopefully the next coach can get more out of him.
Some moments.
Yeah, he did.
He'll make plays with fourth stringers.
Yeah, I mean the receivers today. I mean AJ Green he balled out. Without quality quarterback
who was
play.
that, Johnny? Who's who?
Yeah,
What's his name?
AJ Green
Thank
in his
you,
last
Johnny.
game.
His last game as a Cardinal.
He rose up from the dead and he made a play. Marcus $2. If it's Vance, I'll watch you guys and not the Cardinals. Hey, nothing wrong with that. We appreciate that. And we're gonna be here all off season into the next season. Here's what
38 points. I mean,
making a point here on Quentin Harris, Adrian Wilson.
All right.
I don't think anybody's hiring them for their GM job. Same thing with Vance. So what is the rush to name them the co-GMs tomorrow if you're going to do that? Why can't you go through your due diligence and come out of the back end, go through your process? This is the first time you're going to have a new GM in 10 years. Hire Adrian Wilson or Quentin Harris as a singular GM at the end of the month if you're committed to going through the process. And the other one's not leaving. You're not losing the other, unless they just opt to leave. You're not losing them. It's this. You let Keim interview for GM jobs the year you hired him in 2013. You let Kurt Warner take visits. Hiring them tomorrow shows a lack of awareness to your fan base. You can hire them, or one of them, hopefully, and keep the other one in-house as a VP. There's nothing wrong with being a VP. And do that in 4 weeks, and you'll get much more grace. It shows just I think a stupidity to roll out tomorrow with them as co-GMs, because then here's what you're doing. You're doing this if you're Michael Bidwill. You're saying, I don't want to listen to anything else. We're not this 4-13 team. We're fine.
Right. We're fine.
You can have your cake and eat it too. Just wait and interview some people, because somebody may surprise you, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, it's the definition of insanity, right?
Right.
I mean, no external GM candidates hired since 1994. We've said that several times, and you're just doing exactly what you've done the last couple changes. You're just rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. That's what I've seen that a couple of times in my mentions this year, and I don't disagree with it. But look, part of the report on Sean Payton, the multiple reports yesterday, as far as his availability and the Saints, asking permission, which the Broncos have been given. He can't talk to anybody according to the NFL until January 17th.
Correct.
So don't rush into hiring a GM. I don't want to go to the press conference tomorrow and hear that those guys are locked in, because we don't know if you haven't talked to Sean Payton, you don't know if that's what he wants, or Jim Harbaugh or whatever.
They're not going anywhere.
Ryan.
They're employed. They're under contract.
Well, this what will happen. I've seen this happen before. So they'll fly back tonight. They'll get themselves together.
Yeah, walk us through it,
give them a
Frank.
little bit of conversation, and then they'll have a meeting Monday, a Monday meeting, or sorts. And at that moment, then Mike could come up and probably say a few words to the team. If any of the coaches that are there in that meeting, there's a good chance those coaches probably
won't be in that meeting.
They shouldn't be in that meeting. If you're gonna let them go, they should already know. And then Mike should come up to the players that are there. Thank you for your service. We thank you for what you was able to do. We didn't get out of the season what we wanted to get, but there'll be some changes made. Guys that's got contract situations on the table, we'll work those things out, and we'll reconvene after a couple of weeks here when we got a better sense of where we want to go with the direction.
But Frank, you were a huge proponent that Kliff gonna be here tomorrow. You were talking.
You still feel that way?
You still feel that way?
I do.
Why?
These are my points on why I think Kliff will be, and I know this sounds crazy and really asinine, and everyone's like, the disclaimer is the fact that
they're gonna hit you up in the chat.
Well, I don't worry about that, but here's the disclaimer: is that the records say you should fire this guy alone. Yeah. The ability to commandeer and win games at your own stadium and house, you should be fired, and you haven't done that at all. To get you've gotten your guys to go play, that's fine. But these guys are still they're not elevating and dominating. So that's that. Here's the reason why I think they'll keep Kliff. Is because I'm looking at Kliff personal behavior. On the field, he just was calling plays as normal. Every interview he does, he doesn't have that stressed out. Remember BA when BA was being stressed out? You remember when these other coaches, I had Vince Tobin, he was stressed out. There's a different look when a coach feels like he's getting ready to get fired. There's a different feel when he feels like he's getting ready to get fired. I don't feel that from Kliff. I do not feel that from Kliff. And so that, to me, doesn't say that he won't get fired. It just feels like there's something that won't happen. Vince Tobin got fired on the spot. Vince Tobin didn't even make it back on the plane ride when we left Dallas one year. Yikes. He was done. That was it.
Well, here's a good reminder.
Those are my points.
I appreciate that, and we keep transparency.
Well, I mean,
here.
they just got color TV.
Well, I think a lot of people want it to happen. Here's the thing. Come on, it's Jerry Maguire right here. This is my man, Jerry Maguire. That was a color. All right, here's the thing. Ken Wisenhunt. Anybody who's hoping Kliff gets fired tonight, Ken Wisenhunt, Steve Wilkes were both fired Monday morning. Those seem like locks. So I don't think it's as lock as we would all like it to be. People who want it to move off a Kliff, but it's 90-10. I mean, just you got to sit with.
He should be fired. Period.
Right.
Let's put that mojo out there for change, right? I mean, there's 400 people watching right now. Just slam the like button if you want to end the tenure as far as Kliff Kingsbury with the Arizona Cardinals. That's it. It's a trap door in Michael Bidwill's office. You hit it, and Kliff Kingsbury and his extension, they're gone.
They're gone.
And he's putting a for sale sign outside of his Paradise Valley mansion. It's that simple.
Does he sell it? Does he sell it?
No, he got the cash now.
The
cash isn't going anywhere.
But that's the thing. Kliff is good. His contract is guaranteed.
Right.
He's making 70 years.
Kliff is a great guy. He's always nice to us. Bo gets to chat with him every day.
I'm doing
we don't need to put that disclaimer anymore. I think people should realize.
All right, we want blood. Everybody needs to be fired. We're going to talk about the coaching tiers coming up here, but I want to remind everybody, listen, the fantasy season for the regular season may be over, but hello, Underdog.
You were worse than Kliff Kingsbury.
I was. And you know what? I got my ass fired. I got kicked out, and now I'm exclusive to Underdog Fantasy, just like Kliff Kingsbury is going to be exclusive to the Big 12. Underdog Fantasy does sports differently right now. You can dabble on Underdog Fantasy. Texas Tech should hire him back. Hello, Underdog Fantasy, promo code PHNX. Get this. Postseason football, Underdog Fantasy allows you to dabble. You put in a hundy, boom, you get a hundy with promo code PHNX. You can double dip. A little NBA action, draft up to 6 players, no positional limits. You may feel like just because your year-long slog of year-long fantasy is over, but it's never over with our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Again, smash the promo code, you guessed it, PHNX, UnderdogFantasy.com, or download the app. Sign up with promo code PHNX. Underdog is going to match your first deposit up to $100. We're so fired up to be partnered with Underdog Fantasy. let the good times roll into the off season with Underdog Fantasy, Bo.
Your boy is going to be a fiend on the higher lower.
That's right.
As far as the Underdog Fantasy goes,
Don't have to bet on Trace McSorley anymore.
Selling your house. If you're going to maybe look at a purchase that Paradise Valley Mansion, you're going to need some great furniture to pimp that thing out. And more furniture's got you covered. I mean, look at these nice chairs we're sitting in.
That's right.
I mean, they're comfy. They're sleek looking. We got the great lounge out there. People are watching some TV. PHNX crew enjoying it.
The stool that we got
The
for
stool
Johnny?
for Johnny. That's right, because his feet can't touch the ground.
Hey, no one can see it. It's
Where is it
behind
from?
the locker.
Bring it out.
More
Bust it out,
furniture
Johnny.
making our guy Johnny feel more comfortable on the set. Thanks.
Look at this. This is big time.
Get
You
it
gotta
up.
show them.
It's the off season, baby. It's the off season.
And you
I
know
can
what?
put my feet up. I'm
Thanks
sorry.
to their white glove delivery, we didn't have to sweat it out. Just taking this big old stool. So, for Johnny to get his feet on the ground or
Right.
comfortable, More Furniture. Check them out right now. Morefurniture.com. Save big on the best furniture in the valley when you head to morefurniture.com.
I'm comfortable with my new footstool here. I'm also comfortable knowing that there could be minimal head coaching openings that the Arizona Cardinals have to compete with. Producer extraordinaire Jacob, let's check out
do it.
what we believe are the vacancies, or projecting the vacancies, if you will. The done deal. We know the big three. Carolina, although Steve Wilkes, I think, should get that job. He deserves it. They battled their ass off. The Colts are probably the worst team in the NFL right now. They lose to Houston. That's a gut job. How about our friends over at DMVR and the Denver Broncos helping us get that dub today?
Thank you.
Hell yes, that's right.
Let's ride.
Leapfrogging the Seattle Seahawks in the process. They actually won 2 games without Nathaniel Hackett, so we'll see. They're interviewing Jim Harbaugh. They're interviewing Sean Payton. Those are the done deals. I would like to add the Arizona Cardinals to that group right now. I cannot. So trending that way. Lovie Smith with the double birds for the Houston Texans saying, fuck your first overall pick. I'm getting this win with Davis Mills. You love to see that from old Lovie Graybeard. The Cardinals are on that list because, of course, they are. They've been on there since about mid-October. The Commanders, they beat the shit out of the Cowboys today. But poor Ron Rivera, he doesn't know the playoff rules, so he could get fired. And then Sean McVay, big-time fraud, just can't handle the grind at 36 years old. Sean, you don't have kids. What are you doing? You got plenty of time. Take the offseason off. Go to the beach. Enjoy the
Hang
time.
out with Kliff.
Right? You and Kliff can get a timeshare together. Trending that way. And then the sleepers. These sleepers now, it's getting really sleepy for Brandon Staley, who was playing starters today, inexplicably losing Mike Williams. McCarthy laid a big fat egg in the regular season finale. That was bad. Robert Saleh lost 7 straight games, a la Kliff Kingsbury. Not good. Dennis Allen today losing to Steve Wilkes. We'll see, although he feels safe, as does the coach Stefanski in Cleveland. So I don't know. I felt, Bo, coming into this weekend, like there might not be that many openings. And then shit kind of hit the fan today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot can change in a week, especially in a results-driven league. If you lose, if you put up a poor performance, if you put your franchise in a tough spot, you know, the fan base and the owners, everybody's going to be calling for your job. So that's where we are. Now, I'll throw this in here real quick as we continue this conversation about potential vacancies. Kliff Kingsbury was asked post-game about his job, his future. Same thing as he told us earlier this week. He hasn't discussed anything beyond today's game against the 49ers, which they lost 38-13.
He looked like he didn't. I'm telling you, he was on the
Frank,
side.
get that bad
you
mojo
said,
out of here, bro.
Frank, you said he smiled after the
That
game.
man, he smiled. He
That
walked
was his
off.
boy.
He shook hands.
Yeah, that was his
He
boy.
gave a lot of love. Look, I'm not. I don't want him back. I said it specifically, and I said it professionally. If I'm the receiver having a chance to come back and play this offense, I do not want to. I would not want to be in this offense the way it was called, the way it showed. Let me just say this real quick. DeAndre Hopkins played 90% of his football snaps on the left side of the football field. On the left side of the football field. Today was A.J. Green's first catch for a touchdown on the left side of the football field since he's been here. Like
it was a trick play.
And it was a trick play. And he had to jump over. It's like, look, I'm saying, like, you in the NFL, when you're watching the Kansas City Chiefs, you're watching them move guys around. They're isolating stuff. They're moving guys. They're doing things specifically. I will say this here, DA. Today we saw our offense that took the field in the first half was a night and day offense I'd never seen before. We ran traps, we ran corners, we moved guys around.
YOLO.
I mean,
it was YOLO coaching.
It was YOLO.
You only live once. Frank like, damn, what's that? YOLO.
I knew what he was saying. But I was like,
It was YOLO coaching.
You forget, bro.
YOLO was coaching.
He played with no face mask.
It was too
tweeted,
little,
I was like,
too late coaching.
I
That's
literally
what that
said,
was.
who is this guy? Like, who is this guy that called plays today?
Loose.
But guess what happened? You said it on the halftime show, Johnny. Guess what? We still got 2 quarters of football. We'll see what happened. We absolutely scored
Those
no
halftime
points.
adjustments.
We scored no points in the second half. No adjustments
Not
in the
even close.
second half.
They scored
And-
less than 20
but-
in the last 6 of their last 7 games.
Bad.
Check
And I think the other one they scored only 20.
The analysis.
This is like the stats don't lie, man.
How about this one?
People
49ers
lie,
almost had
numbers
the
don't
exact
lie.
same score. They got their ass kicked 76
That was an improvement.
to 23 against the Niners
They put up
this
3
year.
more points. Way to go.
I mean, I think
that's
that
adjustments.
I think everyone can understand it's a result-based job, and that's why. And given social media, given the intimacy fans can be with Hard Knocks, with Twitter, watching the game, be immersed in a football team. They want results. I mean, when you look around and you see all these other teams being competitive, I mean, it wasn't a great year statistically for the NFL. I mean, there was a lot of teams that, right around the 7-9 record, battling for playoffs.
Yeah,
and the
which is
Arizona
crazy.
Cardinals, I mean, we talked about it. 6-1 game, 6-1, lost by 1 score. 4 of those scores were, double digits, but they were winnable games, and 2 were blowouts. I mean, there were opportunities to win, and I think that everyone is hoping that there is change so you can, I think that everyone sees talent, sees effort, but it just didn't get the job done. And I mean, that's not good enough in the National Football League.
I'm
today's
so
game.
over the injury excuse. And if I hear one
I didn't bring it
injury,
up, Johnny. I
no,
didn't bring
not
it
from
up.
you.
I didn't bring it
If
up.
I hear a certain owner talk about injuries tomorrow, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. This team got smoked today by a third-string quarterback that made it look easy, a 7th-round pick because he was part of a culture that rose up and supported him. Yes, the Cardinals are missing players, but man, oh man, never did it feel like Kyler Murray was supported in that way. It felt like, Kyler, put on your cape, go save us against the Rams earlier this season, or save us against the Raiders, right? The Cardinals got their ass beat in the opening game with minimal injuries against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I can't deal with the injury excuse.
Who won over under that we got to go back to that show? Who picked the over under in terms of wins?
I think you picked the under, didn't you?
It has to be me because I didn't think we was going to do crap this year.
He said it has to be me.
It has to be me.
See,
I had like under.
I already see it on Twitter.
I don't like those receipts. Those are no. Those are
Well,
receipts
no.
I don't want to.
Vegas said this was a playoff team, and we ride with Vegas
I was
here.
like,
no.
Of course we do.
Fair,
We ride
yeah.
with DraftKings. I'm here. This is from Craig at AZ Sports with the team.
Craig
Jalen, yeah, he does a good job with. He and Paul Galvisi talked to Jalen Thompson, and this is the narrative that I'm starting to see now. Jalen says it's very unfortunate that he and Beacham are the only players to start 17 games this season. Jalen didn't just say that. I think they were kind of courted into that. Like, how frustrating was it with all the injuries this year and blah, blah. No. This team was bad. This was a bad team with bad players, with bad personnel, not drafting and developing well. It was a house of cards, right? And it fell. They did not have the depth to sustain this. They went 1-5 in the division. I don't get that narrative out of here. Media, do better. I'm guessing, Bo, that was an implied, hey, the injuries really took a toll. Weren't you guys the only people to do that?
Yeah, but the guy on the other part of that equation, and Kelvin Beachum talked to the media today or this week, and he wasn't making the excuses for the injury. I mean, he almost like joked about all the different dysfunctional issues that kind of plagued this team off the field. The speed racers. That's a quote from Calvin Beachum where he's talking about, I'm sure
it's a culture
didn't
thing.
say it about Hollywood Brown, but that's where you can kind of just connect the dots there. The hold-ins that we never had confirmed that happened during training camp. Just the different things that just knocked this team down. You know, it was death by 1,000 cuts, right? I mean, and it all added up. But at the end, it doesn't. You don't get to return the status quo after a 4-13 team season just because you had a bunch of injuries. It doesn't happen. I mean, a guy like Mike Vrabel will probably survive it in Tennessee. They had more injuries than the Arizona Cardinals. And remember the Titans, they lost 7 straight to finish the season too, right?
Yeah.
But they were way more competitive. They won more games than the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, that's where a coach can elevate where they're losing talent due to injury. We're not getting that in Arizona from the coaching staff and the front office.
Here's another quote from Jalen Thompson on what needs to change for next year. Details and team chemistry will be the two biggest things for us to turn it around. Details, meaning they were a top 5 penalized team each of Kliff Kingsbury's 4 years. So that's a Kingsbury. That's an innate in his DNA. They are not buttoned up. The details are not there. And then chemistry. I mean, that's the coach is a gel guy, is a glue guy. Bruce Arians, maybe not everybody loved each other in that locker room, but damn it, he made sure that guys got along. And
They respected him.
That's right. And it translated on the field. Chemistry comes from the top and it trickles down. You can't overpay J.J. Watt and A.J. Green and James Conner and Zach Ertz to come here and fix your chemistry alone. They can't be expected to do that. The Cardinals tried to Band-Aid their chemistry problem, their leadership problem with veterans, and those veterans got hurt or they couldn't do it alone this year, and it was obvious, Bo.
Let's talk about some undeniable stats. Jacob, do we have these as far as just how they finish under Kliff Kingsbury, the Arizona Cardinals? It's not just a 2022 thing. It's not 2021 thing. It's an every season thing. I mean, this is infamous. We've seen how he finishes dating back to his days at Texas Tech. I mean, he's been a coach for 10 years. He hasn't finished a single season strong. 2-5 from November on. 3-6, 4-6, 1-9 in 2022, 2023. That's 10-26. That's a 38 win percentage from November on. December, it's worse. 6-16, 37 win percentage. I mean, it's just not getting it done. 0-5. They had a no-win December. You can cue up the Counting Crows long December there for this team. Just brutal. Those are undeniable numbers. The results league, the results aren't there. Not enough notches in the win column.
You right there,
Frank.
But guys, Johnny, I want to pick.
Frank was having an episode here.
And I know that we're talking about the potentiality of a new coach, and obviously the chat supports that. But I remember when Bruce Arians was at the time it was, I think, University of Phoenix Stadium, State Farm Stadium, whatever, and he was calling out Larry Fitzgerald day one, like making and it wasn't just like in quiet. It was like so everybody knew. And, Larry 7-8 years in, it's like, whoa. But Larry stepped up. He moved him around. Larry was used to playing X or on the outside, the perimeter. Yeah. He moved him inside and made him have motion and freed up some area. But he also made Larry accountable for the details that we're talking about. Yeah. And you need a coach like that. And I don't know if that's going to come from internally. We haven't seen it yet, so you don't expect that to happen. So that's why I think it should come externally in terms of that coaching search.
Yeah, it's frustrating because – again, Kliff Kingsbury ascending each of his first 3 years, but the end of the year collapses were too much to ignore, were too significant to ignore, and then it turned into an end of the year, entire year catastrophe, I should say. That never once did you feel like Kliff Kingsbury had a hold on this team and said, he can get them out of this. They can put together a couple wins when they absolutely need to. And, this team, we saw it last year, max capacity, everything humming. He can be an effective head coach, but he's a placeholder. He cannot help you win when the chips are down, when the roster isn't ideal. And then the most important factor you could argue is Kyler Murray regressed this year under Kliff Kingsbury, not only on the field, but off the field. Their relationship has regressed. If you keep Kliff, it is purely financial. Saying, I don't want to pay out $30+ million for a coach I just extended. Number one, nobody told you to do that. And number two, Kyler Murray's making over $230 million. Yeah. That's the relationship you need to salvage, and you need to find the next coach that gets Kyler Murray from where he's at. Because I can tell you right now, if you think Kliff Kingsbury, after what we've seen, is going to be able to connect with Kyler off of an ACL and make it work and have belief from Kyler Murray, think again. You need to get that right coach that can elevate Kyler not only from the player that he was, but coming off this major injury, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, I think also you can add to that as far as bad habits, as far as the relationship goes between coach and player, and a little bit of enabling, right?
Yeah.
As far as what we need to see or what this fan base needs to see, this team needs to see from their QB1 to take a step in the right direction, whether it's, on the field or leadership. I don't think that you can recontract their relationship enough to where he's going to be able to take Kyler's game, and nobody can deny that it's been good to borderline great.
Yep.
But to the next level, to kick it into the next gear. Because I just don't think you're ignorant if you think that Kliff Kingsbury is the guy to do that.
Look, I think what we saw was, and this is my opinion, in regards to watching a quarterback and your head coach, but your offensive coach work together. I think in the entire time or the entirety of their time, I've only heard Kyler say one time that game plan was amazing.
Yeah.
That's one night they played the Rams, the first time, and they ended up beating them. It was the very first time he said it that I've ever heard, and I haven't heard him say it again. I think when you're in the NFL, man, you need to look at the game plan, you look at how you're attacking your opponent, you're going out and playing, and this is week after week after week after week, and you're trying to figure out, man, this game plan's not working.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyler hit a bump where he really saw that, man, we're doing the same old stuff,
my coach isn't good enough.
Trying to do it, and this is my opinion but I'm watching the football game, I'm watching the plays we're calling, and you can say, hey, Frank, he went out there and 1 week we saw, Colt McCoy looked like great, but the next week he looked like poop. You know what I mean? Like Colt McCoy was great 1 week, well they didn't adjust.
He's a backup. He's a backup.
But that's how it is in the NFL. Like you might come out one day looking great, but once they kind of get a rhythm to you and they figure it out, that's why you start looking at the second half adjustments, how it's bad. Not just seasonal wise, but also halftime wise. When we come out to halftime, our adjustments have been minimal to none, and therefore it reflects our record.
But guys, do you think that because, and I'm not saying the injuries, but because you haven't had a consistent offensive line, no Rodney Hudson or no left tackle and no defensive line, you had Gardeck and Marcus Golden starting on the outside. Do you think that played a part? You never won the line of scrimmage battle, Frank. You know how important the line of scrimmage is.
Let's talk about the first 6 games of the season.
But you didn't have D-Hop either.
You didn't have. But I mean, how many times? I mean, that's what Johnny's point is. You have to have you have to be dealt a perfect hand, right?
Right on.
I mean, first 6 games of the season, the starts to those games. Remember how brutal and futile and those first halves were offensively. You had Kyler, you had Rodney Hudson for 4 of those games. You had Justin Pugh in there. Your offensive line was pretty much intact. But you couldn't compete. Look, I'll give you a pass for the Chiefs. The Chiefs kicked everybody's ass. But outside of that, I mean, you had a miracle win against Vegas, and then you lost to the Rams, who we find out were terrible, even though they had Matthew Stafford. They just had Stafford and Kupp. That's it.
Here's who they beat this year. Let's recap. They shouldn't have. I mean, they beat the Raiders. Kudos to them. Miracle win. Right. It was a miracle victory. It was the highlight of the season, frankly. Good hell. But then they beat the Rams. Right. With a broken Stafford, and the offense was out of sync, and they were going nowhere fast. They beat Carolina, who fired Matt Rule shortly after. Mm-hmm. Do you guys remember their 4th win of the season? New Orleans on Thursday Night Football. The only win in the last 15 months. That's it. That's who you beat. You beat Andy Dalton at home, right? You beat Matt Rule and Baker Mayfield. You beat a broken Rams team, and you beat Josh McDaniels' fraudulent ass. That's it.
And there were three blowouts, including today. I mean, they were competitive in all the L's that they took.
Yeah.
For the majority. I mean, you look at
that's the one
Eagles,
credit you can give to this team.
And if he's up there with Michael Bidwill tomorrow, that's what Michael Bidwill points to, that this team did not quit.
It's not enough.
Don't get me wrong.
It's got to be about W's.
Almost is only good in hand grenades and ass whoopings.
You're in a division.
That's the only time it matters.
You're
right?
in a division.
I don't think that's the same.
It's almost, you almost got blown up and you almost got an ass whooping. That shit is good.
You think that's good enough for the Rams or the Seahawks or the Niners? The Seahawks said, fuck your rebuild. We're going to try to get to the playoffs this year. If the Packers lose tonight, the Seahawks are going to the playoffs. Everybody thought they were the worst team in the NFL. They swept the Cardinals.
Or how about the Chargers? I mean, the Chargers, they lost their left tackle, lost Bosa.
They were incredibly. I mean, I hate Brandon Staley today for the bullshit he tried to pull, but he did a great job outside of this week. Steelers? Let's talk. Mike Tomlin. The difference between Mike Tomlin and Kliff Kingsbury is the fucking Grand Canyon of coaching. Kenny Pickett didn't have one multi-touchdown game. Everyone wants to annoy Kenny Pickett. No. It's Mike Tomlin. That's what an elite head coach looks like.
Johnny
this is interesting. We're getting some good quotes here. Okay, this is from Kelvin Beachum to Paul Calvisi on the changes that he thinks are going to come this offseason. He said, quote, I think they're going to be pretty significant regarding the changes ahead this offseason. Added, he's not sure what those are going to look like. Significant does not sound like we're going to run it back.
Is he in the contract? Or significant?
No,
be like,
not.
I'm out.
So he can go YOLO. He can say whatever he
He's talking
wants.
about himself.
I'm out.
That's why he's saying hold-ins and speed races.
That's why he
and all
played
the things
today.
he said.
I know. That's why he played today.
And Kelvin Beachum is about his class act, well-respected. He's been on the show. We love him to death, friend of the program. He says what's on his mind, but he also is out there every Sunday.
He was a Cougar guy.
But,
he was the guy that played for Cougar.
He showed up every day.
That's right. He's one of the best free agent signings they've had had of the last half decade, and he says
good and bad with that. I mean,
well,
with that,
he's been good.
yeah.
The bar's been low, but he's been great. 31 other teams would love to have Kelvin Beachum on the roster. He says significant changes he thinks are coming because, frankly, they should. They should have change. When you're 4-13, and you're talking about your defensive coordinator is going to get promoted to head coach, and you got the second worst defense in the NFL, I'm sorry. That significant changes.
But what
fire
pick they
everyone.
got, Johnny? What pick they got?
They got third. They got third.
There's hope.
There is hope. There's a ton of hope.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking doom and gloom here for far too long. I mean, we looked at the coaching vacancies that are potentially coming our way tomorrow on Black Monday. We've already seen that. So if the Arizona Cardinals, there's already reports that Sean Payton's going to meet with the Denver Broncos. It seems like they can give him a blank check as far
Not
as
until the 17th, though.
that. Not till the 17th, right? So they should have at least a seat at the table to interview him. And according to Pro Football Talk and Mike Florio, that they expect the Saints to expect to hear from the Cardinals as far as talking to Sean Payton. So you know, look, it's happening in a sense for the Cardinals and them trying to pursue Sean Payton. But if they miss out on Payton, right? We talk Harbaugh. Who are legit options, you know, that are we talking about ad nauseum and excited about tomorrow,
you know,
Black Monday?
What we never really get from this organization is a list. We never really get. Mike never really explodes out. He's not explosive in describing. Hey, we're hard on these coaches right here. We're looking at these guys.
Here's who we're firing up the PJ to go see. They've
never done that for the most part. They've always kind of snuck around and picked the guy.
I mean, the last couple of years, it's been Steve Keim, and so
and
the crew.
I'm hoping that he does that. I'm hoping that there's some open conversation that will
Steve
excite.
met a guy on the beach.
You have to start talking.
Yeah, I like this guy.
What's that?
That's how Steve Wilkes was hired. Keim met him on the beach, and he's like, "Hey,
you coach?
I like the cut of your jib. You seem like the kind of guy we could use to succeed Bruce Arians, Coach of the Year, Steve Wilkes." And you know what? Keim's probably sitting at home like, told you guys, Steve Wilkes can coach, just can't coach for my franchise. I do think.
But look at that.
Shit.
I gotta keep. Go ahead.
All right. Here, I'm gonna say something.
Look at Christian Kirk. I'm just
yeah, right. Christian Kirk. A lot of ex-Cardinals balling out today. John Brown had a long touchdown catch. I'm gonna say something that's gonna be disappointing to some people. I think the likelihood of getting Sean Payton took a hit this weekend because I think a lot of ineptitude is being showcased by Brandon Staley, Mike McCarthy. I think Sean McVay is gone. That does not bode well for the Cardinals. I do think
that bode well in a sense, though.
Yes, and I do think that McVay right now
one game against him.
I think McVay's a better coach than Sean Payton, who's been out of football a year. But I think the field got much more cluttered than I would like. All that to say, should the Cardinals then bow out? Hell no. And I also think that there are going to be other quality options. I think
shoot your shot.
Yeah, that's right. Shoot your shot.
But the only shot we'd have is to give it our first round draft pick.
Right.
Is that right?
Not this year.
Give a second this year and we'll
collectively
talk.
bargain, man.
And that's where like the Rams, and I put this out on Twitter. Like if Sean Payton, who said this on Fox NFL Sunday, he's like, I'm coming back 70%. Like I'll be back here next year. 7 out of 10, I'll be back on NFL Sunday. That's him saying, no, Saints, I'm picking where I'm going to go. Right. You can ask for what you want, but if I want to be the head coach of the LA Rams, and I tell everybody else I'm not going there, I'm going to stay retired. What are the Saints going to do? Right. They're going to take the bullshit package from the LA Rams. So while they can ask for one and they can try to drive it up, and maybe Sean says, I'll go to LA or I'll go to the Cardinals or I'll go to the Cowboys or whatever. At the end of the day, if he draws a line in the sand, that he's getting what he wants. We talked about that.
This organization that Sean Payton, along with Drew Brees, turned around post Katrina in the Saints after 16 seasons, they're going to hold him hostage. They're going to say, well, we can get the best package from Denver. Payton doesn't want to go to Denver. He's going to say, no, find something else. I want to go to the Rams. And the Rams don't have a first-round pick. The Denver Broncos do via the 49ers through the Dolphins. That was the Trey Lance pick, right, where they traded up.
Niners still screwing us.
Yeah, the Niners still screwing us with that. But if he wants to coach in Arizona, it's going to come down to, they can work something out. They've reportedly work something out or have a plan in place with Denver already. And Denver's got, the Niners pick, which could be close to the end of the first round.
Well, and we failed to mention in the report from this morning, or yesterday, I can't remember. It was within the past 24 hours. Sean Payton has done his due diligence on the Cardinals, and he likes what he sees. The Saints expect to hear from the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That came from Mike Florio. So there is mutual interest. Will it consummate in him being the next head coach? I don't know. But at least there's interest that you've
But the
piqued his
pick
interest.
isn't going to determine where he goes.
No, the Cardinals aren't giving up the 3rd overall pick for Sean Payton. Sean Payton wouldn't want the Cardinals to do that. You give up a day.
Yeah, that's not winning.
Look,
Right.
that's not.
what is
that's
it? The
not winning.
35th overall pick or the 36th overall pick?
That's
Or the
going to be
third
such
round.
that's
Or a
going to be
third
such an
round.
ass kicker. By the way, that position. Oh my god, I can't wait till day 2 of the draft when you got best available, a bunch of first round talent that fell, and Cardinals are going to get one of those guys,
Or they get Sean Payton.
or they get Sean Payton. Equally good, if not better. There's somebody in the chat. I'd love if somebody could follow up. I can't find anything
What?
saying Jay
Glazer?
Glazer
Yeah, I
saying
saw
that Kliff and Keim are officially out. Check it for live if you wouldn't mind sharing where you heard
said
that.
on Fox.
But did he say that on the post-game show? Because I didn't see anything on that on the pre-game show. But I mean,
That
that
was
wouldn't.
6 hours ago.
Jay's pretty
from what I've
connected
seen.
too.
What's that?
Jay's pretty connected.
Well, yeah, I think I believe him more than
Yeah.
even like a Schefter. But he didn't say he liked what he saw. Sean Payton has interest in the Cardinals. To what extent, we don't know.
And history.
And history. He was a ball boy for the team when they were back in
Was
St.
it
Louis.
Dove Kleiman?
What did they report?
So this is via Jay Glazer. He said, quote, it wouldn't surprise if both Kingsbury and Keim are, quote, gone after the season. And that was through Jay Glazer. I think he said it on Fox. And Dove Kleiman, he reported it. He's a guy, around the NFL Twitter, guy over 100,000 followers, kind of repackages other reports.
Yeah.
But he must have seen that.
So
and
assuming that
reported it.
happens, guys, who's your number one? Go down the list. Who's your number one picks for? I mean, I know that you tweeted earlier this week, but for head coaching,
Sure. Okay.
the Arizona Cardinals.
I'll be realistic here, because I would love Jim Harbaugh. I don't think Michael Bidwill has the confidence in and of himself to be able to hire Jim Harbaugh and to manage Jim Harbaugh. I think he would be intimidated by Jim Harbaugh. I'm just being real. I hope that's not the case. I would love to see a report come out. They're interviewing him. I would applaud Michael Bidwill. I would think so highly of him. But I think there's a good chance the Cardinals just bypass Harbaugh entirely, which I think would be foolish because he's an ass kicker and he would want revenge against Jed York and what the Niners did to him. That being said, we put Harbaugh and Peyton aside. I think that's where the realistic list starts, or the semi-realistic list, and it has to start with D'Amico Ryan.
No doubt about
You
it.
have to start with D'Amico Ryan.
No doubt about it.
But why are you guys so headstrong on? Because I heard Bieniemy's a guy that holds people accountable and calls
You'd
people
be fine
out.
with that. 100%. You being around Andy Reid for 10 plus years, like if you're going to ride or die with Kyler Murray and you get somebody who's, I know you don't love Eric Bieniemy,
No.
but it's somebody that offensive minded, somebody that has a proven track record, and somebody that I think could be like a Dable-esque that was overlooked, maybe even a Bruce Arians-esque.
Right.
If a guy doesn't a lot of coaches interview well that then suck on the job, right? I bet Josh McDaniels a great interviewer. I bet Vance Joseph's really good in the interview room too. But
It's like
can
people
they,
who are good at first dates.
right? That's right. But are
They've
they
been on a lot of them.
are they the partner you want long term? Probably not. I would be 100%. And I know people may disagree with this. Winning culture, Andy Reid, rubbing off, and again, everybody thinks that these guys fail because what's his name failed in Chicago. Eric Bieniemy turned down Arizona 4 years ago. They didn't have Kyler Murray. They didn't have Kyler Murray in 2018.
Look, when you watch what he's able to do with Kansas City's offense, there is no effing way you can sit and say, you know what, I wouldn't want this guy as my
They'll be
coach.
better. They'll
Like,
be
I
better.
know. You talking about results?
Where that makes sense,
You talking about results oriented? Results oriented. Or you want to say Andy Reid does it by himself? Good luck with just that. It
Patrick Mahomes is a big
takes
part
a
of
little
that.
bit more.
I
I mean,
agree.
again,
Why are you
But-
anti-Bieniemy? Explain your anti-Bieniemy
I mean,
stance.
he's been a bridesmaid for a while, and I think that there's probably some red flags there. Like, was he never? He went to Colorado? Why was he never in the conversation before prime time as far as Colorado? How come he's not atop most people's list? How come?
He's not my first choice, but
Prime is the creme of the
I
crop
just
right
think
now.
there's it's coming off of two unknowns, right?
Well, you're saying that there's some there.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as you can't beggars can't be choosers as far as the Cardinals go. But you're coming off of two unknowns, right? Wilks and Kliff. Wilks was 1 year a defensive coordinator for the Panthers before he was the Cardinals head coach, and then Kliff was a failed college coach, 35-40 in the Big 12 at Texas Tech. Those were both unknown commodities. where Bieniemy, I think there's too many question marks about the Chiefs' success. How big of a part was he? Because of how incredibly talented Patrick Mahomes is. Andy Reid, what's his part as far as the play calling and the game planning? And also, you had the former coach from the Bears, come back to
Matt.
But hold on.
What about Doug
hold on.
Peterson?
But for that argument, I would say Wisenhunt, and you also had the Cardinals coach. He was a QB coach. He wasn't even an offensive
Frank
coordinator.
Wright.
No, I mean in terms of the BA when he came here.
Right.
He was a quarterback
Leftwich,
coach.
yeah.
And he transitioned to a coordinator and then had success and interviewed here. And no one thought anything about BA being successful with the Arizona Cardinals.
I'll raise you a Doug Peterson under Andy Reid that went on and won a Super Bowl, has won a division title in Jacksonville. And again, I know he's much more of
Bruce
a player's
Arians won a
coach.
Super Bowl.
And I've heard reports, and it's obvious now, like sometimes Bieniemy butts heads with Patrick Mahomes. So maybe that's going too far the opposite way of Kliff. Yeah. I want somebody to hold Kyler Murray accountable. I love Kyler Murray. I'm sporting his jersey today because I believe in K1 long term. But I think the Cardinals can do worse than Eric Bieniemy. I think a lot of people could get fired up knowing that the offense will look at least presentable, will have an identity. They know exactly what they want to do. And I also think he'd have a big chip on his shoulder. Like, yeah, he passed over the Cardinals in 2018. Nobody wanted the job at that point. But he's gotten passed over. He's had final interviews. Yeah. He can't get interview jobs. And he's an ex-player. And I think that matters to a lot of people. I think a lot of people look at Kliff, the handouts, right? I get he was an ex-player, but he never won anything, right? He was under 500 at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes. This Bieniemy now is, you could make an argument, overqualified with his statistics. The fact that he played in the NFL for 3 franchises, he's been coaching for a long time under Andy Reid. He's 53 years old, so maybe you get him in his coaching peak. I don't know. He's not my first choice, but I think he should get an interview.
No, yeah, and I like the D'Amico Ryans because you know that what Salah's done works. They got a top 5 defense.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I know that they're struggling offensively, but the defense you have no questions about.
And it's crazy how much talent the Cardinals have or under control on the defensive side of football. It feels moving forward, and you're looking, if you're a prospective coach, if you're D'Amico Ryan, you're like, hey, I can work with a guy like Isaiah Simmons and Zayden Collins.
But you saw Salah walk into the Jets job, and he had how many number 1 draft picks at defensive line?
The reason they're not winning is because their offense sucks. And if D'Amico Ryan has seen Kyler Murray burn his defense in years prior, he say, well, if I get an offensive coordinator, I can work with Kyler and maybe run a portion of the Shanahan scheme. I'll take care of the defense. What impresses me most about D'Amico Ryan, Frank, is that you look at their team and their defense, their front 7. Like, name a household name outside of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. There's not a ton. There's not another double-digit sack artist opposite Nick Bosa.
Eric Armstead's a grown-ass man.
Right, but he missed a bunch of time this year. Javon Kinlaw's
he developed, too.
Been a bust. I feel like he did more with less than even Robert Saleh. Because, again, name a bunch of their standout secondary players outside of Ufungo. I can make an argument.
Troy Polamalu 2.0.
And if you point to the DTs, it's like, okay, Saleh had Quinnen Williams, and you've got Armstead there in San Francisco, and you had DeForest Buckner before that. It's like, 3rd overall, you can get yourself a Jalen Carter.
Get whatever you want, D'Amico.
Look, I look at D'Amico, and D'Amico comes from Alabama. Like, he
knows how to get it done.
He knows how to get it done. Like, when you've seen what it looks like to win at high levels, and when you're able to go out and get top-tier athletes, you bring them in to match what you want to create. I don't care if he's 6'5" and he runs a 5 flat. Who gives a shit? He can stand up and hold somebody in the pocket. He can do his part. I think there is something that when you look at a coach, what he's been able to do, the defensive coach, his mentality has to be, depending on his offensive coach and what the offense is doing, his mentality has to be, I have to be a bend, don't break, but I have to know what I got. I have to know how to use my guys and put them in the right spot to be successful. I have to study enough film and know exactly what the offense is doing to kind of minimize where my weaknesses and my problems are. I think that sometimes it's not just about your playbook. It's about being able to use your playbook to attack another team's weakness. If you don't do that effectively, I like Kliff, then you're just going to be a sitting duck in the second half because they make adjustments. You have to be able to be smart enough to go out and say, these are the guys I got to put in the right spot. I got to move guys around. When we saw Devontae Adams over in Green Bay, he moved consistently in that offense all the time, and all it was for mismatch purpose to put him in a position where he can tackle a linebacker or a nickel or a dime who've been sitting on the sideline most of the game. Coaches in the NFL, there is just no straight offense.
Bingo.
You have to go left. You have to go right. You have to move guys around. Tonight we saw, in the first half, we saw a lot of misdirections. That was the very first time I ever seen Kliff do that. The most I've ever seen Yola do that Yola for the first time I ever seen Yola do that. Like, I've never seen Yola coach like that. That was something different. So to me, in my mindset, I think that, when you're looking at what D'Amico brings to the table, it's the mentality of always being around a running atmosphere and knowing how to get guys to come to work to compete. If you compete and you come to work every day, then that gives me a chance, and I know who I got. I got a dog on my right. My dog's he's gonna do his job. Then I'm gonna show up, and he's gonna hold me to that standard. If you don't hold me to that standard, then we got problems. And that's what we were just talking about a minute ago when we look at Kliff. All these penalties, while guys are missing meetings, showing up late. Look, those are problems, and those are the small things that start eating you in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild 24 hours.
Can we make a definitive, like, maybe top 5 list real quick on the phone?
Yeah.
Because
Let's
I think
do it.
we obviously, are we all in agreement? Sean Payton's the
number
dream,
one,
right?
Number one.
All right.
Yes.
Harbaugh too.
He's
Yeah.
1A for John.
Because you got guys that
Yeah.
are, I mean, those are two coaches that have the success. Harbaugh, 41-19, Super Bowl appearance.
He's good.
NFC Championship game. What was it, 4 of the 5 years, Johnny?
Yeah.
You don't like him, Frank?
Peyton, 16 seasons. You had the Super Bowl win.
I like him.
Those are proven commodities, right? Okay. And then 3. Then you're looking at the crop of coordinators.
D'Amico Ryan.
Don't we have
has to be
D'Amico
3.
Ryan at
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
All right. Now this is where it gets a little bit dicey.
This is where it gets gross.
Okay. So 4 and 5. Anybody want to throw out a name?
Oh man.
Bieniemy and Kellen Moore, maybe.
Kellen Moore, I mean, outside of today, Dallas's offense the last 2 seasons has been in the conversation for the best in the league, and he's carrying that walking.
I mean, what other
cadaver
offense? But what other
Mike
offensive
McCarthy.
besides getting creative and going to college and finding a guy?
I take Leftwich. Leftwich is one. I like Leftwich. He's been with the GOAT. I mean, these guys have formulated. And look,
year, though,
I mean,
Frank. They've struggled.
But they've struggled because I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers has the most drops by any receiving core in Tom's history. They just drop balls. They they never replaced Gronk. That was their biggest mistake.
That was.
And again, so I think that I've watched Leftwich create a game plan. He has no problem throwing that ball down the field. They run a lot of crossing routes between. That's why Godwin is able to be successful in the middle. When they had a tight end that they can make plays, he featured him. And you're looking at what we got right now in Trey McBride. We got guys that can cross the middle of the field. I'm 100% with my boy on that area. Leftwich.
We got in the chat.
I like some of these
two options that I think the Cardinals will consider. Jacob, if we could scroll up just a smidge. Ben Johnson, according to K1. Stain Stetchen. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Stain Stetchen, the OC in Philadelphia.
That's a simple offense.
It is, and
it's
I
very
think
well executed.
they need to get back to simplicity in Arizona.
But guys, Jalen Hurts is a different
right,
body,
right? And I was
Kyler
just about
Murray.
to say that. Like, can you? It's like
You
why
can't
Greg,
do that same.
It's
offense.
why Greg Roman can't get a head coaching job, because what he does is specific to one singular player, a la Kaepernick, a la Lamar Jackson. Like, it's great when you have those entities and they're humming, but like we've seen with Kyler Murray. Like, Kyler can't run like Jalen Hurts. Like, that's not sustainable over 17 games.
But he has to be smart enough to know that, hey, man, I need to make better decisions.
It wasn't sustainable for Jalen. He missed
Right.
two.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to make better decisions, man. Like, you have to realize you got to bounce. I can't take hits. I can't take shots. I can't gamble on 3 yards and 4 yards, even though he's smaller. But you can create the ability to max. How about this here?
Get down.
Let's not talk about the weakness of his height or his body size. Let's maximize his strengths. His arm can throw that bitch anywhere, and his ability and his ability to be elusive.
Here's
got to make sure he's out of bounds.
I'm gonna cheat. I'm not gonna give you a name, but I think any list that doesn't start with one of the following things, it's a failure. Are they a leader of men, and can they culminate and gratify a locker room? Can they get a locker room fired up?
Okay.
I don't give a shit what your playbook looks like. If you can't do that and you don't get buy-in, this team will continue to fail. And so you have to be able, number one, to lead grown men in this locker room of 53, and that is what Kliff Kingsbury has failed to do.
Let's add one more. You have to believe in Kyler Murray. Because if we're talking, if you even want to open up the conversation about a guy like Brian Flores, I mean, it just didn't work for his tenure in Miami. Even though he had, wins and losses, I thought he was a good coach. He didn't believe in Tua. And you can't bring him in if he's going to do the same thing with Kyler Murray. You're invested in Kyler Murray.
And
it's not a rookie deal like
And
Tua.
if you're Michael Bidwill and you're firing Kliff Kingsbury and you're eating the money on Kliff and Keim and Manson, et cetera, I think that you double down on the fact that, like, okay, somebody needs to come here and prop up Kyler Murray. And I think you can do that with a non-offensive coach. I think you can do that with a defensive head coach that says, okay, Kyler, we're going to play complementary football. We're going to do what San Francisco does, run the ball, play great defense, put you in positions to succeed. We're not going to ask you, at least in the short term, the next 18 months, when you're rehabbing, when you've been banged up. I mean, listen, he got drafted in 2019 and they said, save us, Kyler Murray. Play backyard football. Every game that Kyler Murray, this team has to win, you got to score X amount of points because we can't win low-scoring affairs. That's never been the Cardinals' DNA with Kyler Murray. In de facto, that's not Kliff Kingsbury's DNA. It's like Kyler has to be a superhero. We have seen it so many times on Sunday. When's the last time that Kyler Murray and the Cardinals won a low-scoring game? Remember how many ugly games Bruce Arians used to win for this franchise? Yeah. Carson Palmer's first year, 23 touchdowns, 20 picks, winning games with Blaine Gabbert and Drew Stanton. You do not have to be an offensive savant. Now, you got to get a good coordinator, and that's, we'll see who they roll the dice on if they hire DeMeco Ryan. Mm-hmm. But man, oh man, this team is so fundamentally broken from a leadership standpoint that they had to go out and just buy a bunch of free agents, leaders to come in and fit. Like, get your own leader at head coach and GM and then start anew with this draft class. That, to me, like, I don't care what side of the ball I'm on. I used to be an offensive guy through and through, but man, oh man, I have seen enough garbage with this franchise for the last, half decade. Just be a guy that can lead.
But look who's getting the flowers for all these great offensive teams. It's not the head coaches, it's just these OCs. It's why Ben Johnson's in the conversation. It's why Shane Steichen is in the conversation. It's why Kellen Moore. They're all going to get interviews from some of these vacancies. Jacob, can we see the potential vacancies list one more time? Done deals. You got 3 teams: Panthers, Colts, Broncos, Texans likely, Cardinals likely, Commanders likely, and with the reports about Sean McVay, the Rams. You got the Saints as a sleeper, the Jets, Browns, Cowboys, and Chargers. When you look at that and we talk about the top candidates, the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray under contract. I know he's got the ACL and he's got the potential to miss some time. You've got the 3rd overall draft pick. You've got Kyler Murray only going to take up 7% of your salary cap next season. You've got assets like DeAndre Hopkins. You got Isaiah Simmons, Budda Baker. You've got players all up and down this roster. If you can't get one of your top 3 candidates, it's a huge indictment on this organization that transcends the roster.
Okay, and the fan base is going to say, you, Michael Bidwill, you're the problem. We don't want to put you in the same realm as your late father. Good man, not a good football owner, right? Did not run the Cardinals well. Since Michael Bidwill took over, we've given him his flowers. He's turned over and gotten a new stadium. They've been to the Super Bowl. They've had the most successful tenure ever in the history of the franchise, going to the playoffs, winning the division. But you're back in a rut now, and we're at a teetering point, and we're going to find out, especially in these next 24 hours, gentlemen, what that's going to look like and what kind of owner does Michael Bidwill want to be. Do you want to be a big-time owner? Do you want to play with the big boys in the NFC West? Or are you going to go back into basically a period of irrelevance where you're just doing the same thing over and over?
And, Johnny, I want to throw this to Frank because I saw some in the chat, and they're like, we need an old-school coach, a guy like Buddy Ryan. And I know that you experienced that. You know what I mean? You were around that time.
Frank can't keep it
like
together.
what, you know what I mean? Like what was a coach like that? Like, in comparison to Coach Mack, right? Like where you and I both played together.
Yeah.
Like what was
night and day. Buddy was a savant in defense, just like his two sons thought they were, and Rex and Rob. And they believed that they knew they could call offensive plays just like Matt Patricia's doing over in the Patriots, because they know
do it.
they know how to do. They know every offensive play. Buddy was a strong man, hard man. He believed in the veterans ran the locker room. He believed that every rookie had to earn its right to be in the NFL. It shouldn't just be given to you because it's a grown man league. You have to earn your way. Can you not just play 12 games like you do in college? Can you play 16 weeks? Come to work and show up 1 week doing great. But he didn't give a shit about that. He cared about, can you be there when I need to call you in week 15 when you make that play? Those are the things that Buddy cared about.
Do you think the Cardinals need more of that?
You know what? I always say this here. I think like teams where you play like in San Diego, you play in Arizona, you play in Miami, the environments, the society, everything on the outskirts always allows you to be in like a utopia.
It's free.
The weather's great.
Wide open.
I'm saying, but the weather's great. Anything can happen. You can be on the road, like in Vegas. Now they're in Vegas. You can party all night. You can get up and go to work. Like those are things that become distractions, especially to a young team. You have to have veterans to lead those teams and get those guys ready to work.
Yep.
You saw what Phillip Rivers was able to do. He still was able to get his team to go out and fight, but they gave him a lot of pieces. He was able to do that. In Miami, it's been hard to transition that.
It's been hard to win.
South Beach is calling the mother sucker, so it's hard. South Beach, the Cubanians, Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, it's just hard to stay focused. Tampa, it wasn't great until you got a certain coach and a certain culture mentality.
Vets.
Vets and vets.
They were vets.
They had to be vets to come in and control and show up every Sunday. So I think what the Cardinals do need is they gave Buddy a blank check as to be the general manager and the head coach. That was his thing. That's why we was able to get half of the Philadelphia
Good
Eagles.
mindset, wrong coach.
And so, but the mentality behind it was always defense first. So Buddy would spend $150 million on the defense and 72 on the offense. As we saw this year, we put a bunch of money on the offense and not as much on the defense. And so those are the things that we got to be careful about. If we get a defensive coordinator, Mike, are you opening the book?
Yeah.
Like this offseason, we saw us be very skeptical to make moves on anything.
Man.
And that could have been Mike's position because we were paying coaches and general manager, or we was going to pay Kyler. And he just wanted to be skeptical in that area because that's his management style. I would like to see them bring somebody, and I agree with you guys. I don't mind bringing a defensive-minded coach because the future of our youth is really on our defense. I mean, and our talent really is in our defense now.
But you sign your quarterback to $230 million.
Yeah, but
you want to foster and uplift that position.
Well, this is what happens.
I was thinking, and you can do it with the coordinator. But I just think it should be a priority. That's all I'm saying.
Kyler doesn't need much. Kyler doesn't need much.
No.
He doesn't. He can throw. He has a mentality. You talking about a Heisman Trophy winner? He was the same height when he won the
goddamn tight end.
He was the same height when he won the Heisman.
And
I've never even mentioned that.
33-year-old Zach Ertz who's coming off ACL, MCL surgery, and you've got JJ at 33 retiring. You're gonna have you're rebuilding, right? You're not retooling, you're rebuilding. And what's the roster? It's gonna go down significantly as far as the average age, right, Frank?
30 unrestricted free agents.
When you have a lot of younger players, you probably need more of a guy that is gonna hold his players accountable than, hey, let's just roll the
to show them what it looks like.
Look,
right?
When the
to
offense,
show them what it looks
I'm gonna say this here: we was crappy until 1 year. We was able to go get. I played with Jim Fossil. He was my offense coordinator for 1 year. I'm gonna start a fight with you, mother. Keep calling me old.
I did not.
That's that Kevin. You know what? Started a fight with him. But long story short, I had Jim Fossil, man, and Jim Fossil, he just came in with a mentality that these are certain things we need to do. He wasn't even the head coach. He was the offense coordinator. And what happens is when you start seeing that the coach is putting you in the best position to win and be successful, your trust level changes. It transitions. When your head coach, when your offensive coordinator is protecting your weaknesses and exposing the other team's weaknesses and putting guys in position, it's huge. If you're a right tackle that doesn't do well, you got to always slide your tight end, motion guys around to put them in that position. Jake struggled when defenses moved around a lot. But we never motioned people. If we started motioning people, it will force them to stay in a certain position. It's just coaching. It's schematic.
Well, speaking of coaching, though, and I want to double down on what, Bo, you just said, is that the next coach is going to have a lot of young talent that they're going to have to mold because A.J. Green, gone. Robbie Anderson, gone. Rodney Hudson, gone. Kelvin Beachum, likely gone. Justin Pugh, gone. Zach Ertz, hurt. Watt, gone. I don't want this young talent that they're going to accumulate to be relying on Kliff Kingsbury and Vance Joseph, who struggled developing young players, especially Kliff Kingsbury, who has not elevated one draftable player that this franchise has gone outside of Kyler Murray and made him into a star player. Christian Kirk playing his best football outside of this franchise right now. Kyler Murray regressed under Kliff Kingsbury this year, right? They let Chase Edmonds go. I mean, Trey McBride should have been playing all year, should have been featured in this offense. We're seeing it now, too little, too late. This roster is going to turn over. It's going to be a young roster. You want to give that youth, that impressionable youth, Bo Brock, to Kliff Kingsbury and Vance Joseph? No thanks. That's a big stinker of an idea.
They've had their opportunity, and they had veteran-laden teams, right?
I agree.
And they just couldn't even make it work with that. And unfortunately, the injuries piled up for those guys, and that's what that's the risk in this brutal game, this so physical game, when you bet on a majority of your top players being vets, guys. They were available for a reason because teams didn't want to pay the premium or give them a roster spot because of the chances that they're not available, right? What's the best, ability is your availability sometimes. As cliche as it is, it killed the Cardinals.
The greatest thing to Kyler Murray's success was a veteran in Rodney Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Rodney Hudson didn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
He eliminated most of the thinking because he put the offensive line in the best position to protect him and watch over him. Once he got hurt and the offense really started getting exposed, what they could do, and and they got exposed with Matt Patricia and the wide technique and then putting 4, rushing 4, but not really trying to get to Kyler, and then dropping 7 guys. You started closing the windows and the gaps, and Kyler was holding the ball and trying to make something happen. That's not how that's supposed to work. If you're a good offensive coordinator, tonight, I'm telling you guys, you go back and watch the first half of this game tonight, you're going to see the YOLO Kingsbury call something that we've never seen before. He called more
He's
plays.
getting his game tape ready
No,
for,
I mean,
for his next job.
I'm just going to use Johnny's argument all the time. But what about the second half adjustments?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, you got to be able to
I'm not saying,
adapt
again,
and pivot and do different things.
That's why other teams. That's why other teams win. That's why other coaches win. A lot of coaches, and when you're talking about this is not checkers, this is chess. I have to figure out what I need to. I know how to move my pawns on the board in the second half. I need to figure out what I need to do because you've exposed yourself. You make moves to help your guy expose them. Then in the second half, we go back and make adjustments, and then you start putting things into play. Just like Bo, just like Johnny do, man. They always they give people they don't give people the checkers move. They hold stuff behind. Then they give you information later. Then you see a tweet at Johnny about 3:00 in the morning, like, "Oh my God, I couldn't believe it." And then next thing you know, but that's how it is. But that's the NFL is chess, and a lot of good guys that know what they're doing, offensive coordinator wise. You don't need all your players, but you need to know how to move guys.
Well, I don't play checkers or chess, but I do play spades. And sometimes when I got that big joker, I want to know who's going to be that big joker for the Arizona Cardinals.
Let's get to final predictions here.
Kingsbury's playing Hungry Hippos.
But before we get to final predictions for the next 12 to 24 hours, I want to remind everybody, check out our guy, PHNX Cardinals beat reporter Howard Balzer, cranking out the post-game article, probably likely to give his thoughts on what the Cardinals should do and what they will do. Smash the promo code Howard, HOWARD. Become a diehard. There's no better time to become a diehard at GoPHNX.com ahead of our big Tee Party next event with Four Peaks, January 13th. You get a buttload of money off, I think 20%. Plus, you become a diehard, pick up a free lid, T-shirt from the PHNX merchandise locker. The member Discord will be popping all off season long at GoPHNX.com. Diehard, do it now, Bo.
Everybody in the chat has an appetite for change. I've got an appetite for some pizza. I'm going to hit up our friends over at Mountain Mike's tonight. Long day in the studio. I'm going to go home with a couple pies to the fam. They've got, of course, that rounded, crispy, curly pepperoni.
I need one right now.
Let's just go the curly little pepperonis.
That's right.
Is the best type of pepperoni. You can find a lot of great things on the menu over at Mountain Mike's Pizza. In the East Valley, you've got just, your standard Kevin McAllister cheese, but it's elite. You got the Pikes Peak. You got the Mount Veggie More. Can't go wrong with any of their pies. Check them out, of course. As I said, head over to our friends over at Mountain Mike's website, mountainmikespizza.com/menu. Just do the easy work for yourself in the navigation bar. Take yourself right to the menu, place an order.
Chris Ramos in the chat. Cliff is scheduled to speak with the media tomorrow. Bo, do you want to debunk that? That's always the case. That schedule gets sent out in advance. That will be Michael Bidwill should they make a change, correct?
Yeah, so we've got head coach Kliff Kingsbury available in the press conference room tomorrow at 2 p.m. That email just went out. Players will be available early in the morning from 8:30 on.
What do you make of that?
That's interesting. But they have to move forward as if until he's the coach. He's the coach until he's not. So we'll see. I mean, they can cancel and reschedule press conference.
They do it all the time.
He can come out and give his last, his speech.
I don't think they're going to do that to Kliff.
He can come out and say, "Hey, this is what the season was like. It wasn't my best." Blah 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 blah.
I mean, we've seen it happen a lot.
You're shaking your head, Saul Bookman. Is that a bad sign? Do you think?
We've seen it happen a lot, guys, where some things have happened and Kliff didn't know that it happened this year.
That is true.
We've seen a lot of things move.
He's the coach until he's not. You got to move forward like as he is, and we'll see. I mean, I would anticipate we're probably going to see reports from your reporters like Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, Jay Glazer, They're not going to put him up there to answer
If he's
questions
speaking,
like
he
Bob
ain't going.
McManaman,
If
Bob
he's speaking, he
McManaman
ain't
on
going.
Twitter. Bob McManaman on Twitter. Saul Bookman, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Bob McManaman on Twitter. The Cardinals just announced Kliff Kingsbury will be speaking with reporters tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm taking that as a pretty strong clue that Kingsbury is not getting fired following a 4-13 season.
You think media relations is hitting up Michael Bidwill to say, hey, do we need to send him up there or not? I mean, they're just doing their job. They're just continuing the job until they're told differently.
Or he's coming back.
Or he's coming back.
Hor-
And that's going to...
that's horrifying.
I agree with Bo. I think they're going to go as business as usual because they're not trying to raise flags within the organization. And
He's still on the
How-
airplane.
Raise
He's
how
still
long
on
is
the
the
flight.
flight?
He's still on the flight home.
oh, I know that, but I'm just saying, as the organization, they're not going to
Gotcha.
raise flags for you.
He's
But
still
you can
on
raise
the-
your own flag.
He's
but
still
we
on
ain't
the
gonna do
flight
it for
home.
you.
They're not going to
You know what I'm
fire him
saying.
on the flight home.
We've seen that happen.
Well, not recently though. That happened 20 years ago.
Oh, when they fired,
Good.
they fired my man. You can't. That's it. We good.
I
We
with
good.
all due respect
That's
to Bobby
Toby.
Mack, I think again that is the Cardinals trying to put this season to bed today and then new business tomorrow. Go ahead, Saul.
Also, I just wanted to say this. Congratulations on another year, another season under the belt. This is the second one for PHNX. Thank you guys. You guys did a fantastic job. And also, I kind of love the fact that we got the number 3 pick in honor of DeMar Hamlin and his recovery this year. So that's
absolutely.
pretty
Great
dope.
point.
That's what's up. Great point.
Man,
That's
oh man.
solid.
I was
Bring
going to
it
do
together.
final
That's
prediction.
wholesome.
That is.
Like, bam. We got number 3.
That's wholesome before
I was expecting
potentially
that.
not
I was-
wholesome
I was-
24 hours
I was
now coming up.
You should have
Hey,
saw. You shoulda
K1
saw-
said that they sent that email out before they fired Steve Wilkes too. I remember that they did do that. They did send that out, and then Monday he was fired.
He said so.
So did he speak? Did Wilkes speak or no?
No,
he was fired
No,
Monday
there we go.
morning.
Okay,
we saw
just- I
Steve
just
Keim
asked
and Michael Bidwill. They were answering some questions, and they did that on a shot clock. They said, "Hey, we're going to take responsibility for this mistake." Steve Wilkes, who won more games than Kliff Kingsbury this season,
Damn.
and they had about as far as the press conference, they only took so many questions. I mean, this is going to be something where Michael Bidwill most likely is going to be up there solo for the first time in 2 decades,
Or
probably.
have his boys.
Or have
Q and A-Dub.
But as we said, I mean, we think that it's smart. I mean, they're still the interim GM, co-GM, so
Right.
they can certainly be up there as well. But they're going to have to, if they're up there, they're going to probably be asked questions about their future and what the GM position is going to look like. So regardless of what's scheduled right now, and I can confirm that Kliff Kingsbury is scheduled to talk to the Cardinals media tomorrow at 2 p.m. This is going to be after the players talk in the locker room tomorrow morning. They're going to have to answer some questions, regardless if it's Kliff, it's Michael Bidwill, if it's the co-GM interim tandem. There's going to be questions asked. The organization is going to have to answer for a 4-13 season and what the future looks like.
Keep it locked into PHNX Cardinals throughout the course of the next 24, 48, 72 hours and beyond. Subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube. Like this video if you have not done so already. Subscribe to the PHNX Cardinals podcast. The season is over, but for this group, now the real work begins as we have the offseason covered. We own the offseason. Not sure if you heard this or not here at PHNX Cardinals. Bo and I are primed to go live immediately following potentially the firing of Kliff Kingsbury. Regardless, 4 p.m. tomorrow, myself, Bob Brock, DA, keeping you in the loop with regard to all the news and notes. We're going to have some kind of content coming out of Tempe, whether it's Michael Bidwill, Kliff Kingsbury, whomever. We're gonna keep the folks ready to go and informed. But again, want to emphasize, thank you guys so much.
Let me say this.
What?
One last thing. Let's
Okay.
leave it on a cliffhanger, okay?
Oh,
One last
geez,
thing,
Jesus.
Jake.
We're all
Jacob.
going to throw up
Look,
right now.
I'm just going to say this. If they didn't send out the regular email for media availability, we would have just assumed that he ain't coming back, that they've already made a decision.
Do you think they haven't made a decision yet?
No, I mean, I think that they have. They just haven't informed him.
I told y'all. Just saying. The dude is smiling.
Frank Sanders
smiling.
off the top rope. Again, we
Hey,
appreciate
let's just go to sleep with the 3rd overall pick.
No,
I feel good about that.
Think about
I do
that.
feel good about
Yeah,
that.
you got to feel good about that, Johnny.
Johnny, you know how
Feel
much
good
you
about
shouted
that.
for that to get Denver to win?
Johnny, you turn to a whole nother person.
I do.
You mean you feel
I got a checklist. All right, I'm on to the next. We're on to tomorrow. Thank you guys for making this the PHNX Cardinals podcast.
This season's been unbelievable.
You've been fantastic. You never know with the support that we have been given from all of you that this team is so shitty at 4-13. And that's a testament to all of you. Yeah. And it's a testament that we're going to bust our ass in the offseason to get you the most premium access from the Combine, Senior Bowl, Super Bowl week, draft week, everything that you want. Ask for it. We're going to get it to you here at PHNX Cardinals. For Bo Brock, Frank Sanders, Damien Anderson, we'll see you when we see you. Have a great night, everybody.